Candidate fields start filling up locally for election. Dan Kearns, Local Journalism Initiative reporter for The Standard. Kawartha Lakes, North Durham. Candidate fields are starting to fill up locally in the preparation of the 2021 federal election, being held on September 20th. In the Halliburton-Kawartha Lakes-Brock riding, Conservative Party MP Jamie Schmale is the incumbent. For the second time, Judy Forbes is running for the Liberal Party in the riding. Zach Miller is the NDP candidate, and Angel Godso is running for the Green Party. Allison Davidson is the People's Party of Canada candidate. In the Durham riding, Conservative MP and party leader Aaron O'Toole will be looking to keep his seat in Parliament in this election. Running against Mr. O'Toole is Jonathan Giancros for the Liberal Party. Laura French is for the Green Party, Patricia Conlon for the People's Party of Canada, and Christopher Cameron for the NDP. In the Pickering-Uxbridge riding, Liberal MP Jennifer O'Connell is the incumbent. Former Uxbridge councillor Jacob Mantle will be representing the Conservative Party. Cornelio Chizu is the People's Party of Canada candidate. Eileen Higdon is looking to win the riding for the NDP.
TLDSB Education Director provides an outlook on 2021 to 2022 school year. Dan Kearns, Local Journalism Initiative reporter for The Standard. Kawartha Lakes. Trillium Lakelands District School Board, TLDSB, has revealed more about what their upcoming school year is going to look like. At a board meeting on Tuesday, August 24th, Director of Education, Wes Hahn, provided trustees with an update on the board's plans for the new school year. We know there is still a concern about the COVID-19 cases in the province and the Delta variant, but we've been in touch with our public health units, working over the course of the month really carefully on mapping out our plans for the return to school, he said. The board is looking forward to being able to provide in-person learning. We are very excited about starting in-person learning in our schools. That is something we all here in the room think is really important, Mr. Hahn explained. While the province made it mandatory for students from grades 1 to 12 to wear masks in schools, the TLDSB is maintaining their requirement is for students from kindergarten to grade 12 to wear masks. We think that is important. And the Simcoe Muskoka Health Unit also supported and recommended that requirement, Mr. Hahn said. The education director noted there would be some small changes in how the student cohorts are managed. That cohorting practice will still occur inside the building in elementary schools, but outside, cohorting is not necessary. Students will also not be required to wear masks outdoors. Clubs, extracurricular activities, and sports will be offered to students this year too. That was something which was really missing for our kids. Sure, we feel strongly about the learning component of it, but parents see the students' connections with their peers and friends through these activities, Mr. Hahn stated. Cafeterias and libraries will be open for students to use as well. We're going to take a very cautious approach to how open we make buildings and how quickly we start to move into spaces. We know these spaces are important, and we want students to access them, but we want to make sure the principals have a good plan for the movement in the building, and also that these spaces can be cleared properly and high-touch surfaces can be cleaned, Mr. Hahn explained.
Visit the Lucy Maud Montgomery Trail. Courtney McClure for The Standard. Uxbridge. There are many trails around Uxbridge for people to walk on, but not all of them have a historical factor. The Lucy Maud Montgomery Trail is a safe, self-guided, and historic tour which features places holding significance to Lucy Maud Montgomery's life. Lucy Maud Montgomery was an author born in Canada, Clifton, now New London, Prince Edward Island, on November 30th, 1870. She is the author of the Anne of Green Gables series. While writing Anne of Green Gables, Lucy Maud Montgomery lived in Leaksdale through the First World War from 1911 to 1926. She also raised a family through the flu pandemic of 1918 there. The new trail features 15 stops in and around Uxbridge, Zephyr, and Leaksdale. Accompanying the trail is a podcast using excerpts from Lucy Maud Montgomery's journal entries. The people mentioned in the excerpts are voiced by local actors Conrad Boyce and Jennifer Carroll. The podcast also references the historical significance of each stop, while providing the traveler with directions to the next stop. According to a press release from the Township of Uxbridge, the stops featured on this trail host mod-themed activities and attractions. For example, the Leaksdale Manse was home to Lucy Maud Montgomery's residence during her time in Leaksdale. At this stop, a tea and tour package are available. Kids can also enjoy traditional homemade ice cream and Cavendish cat-themed crafts. At the Uxbridge Historical Center, participants can visit 3 buildings, each relevant to Lucy Maud Montgomery's life. You can also see the signature Red Cross quilt, which has Lucy Maud Montgomery's married name stitched into it. According to the release, some local businesses have also joined in. The Bridge Social is offering Anne's favorite organic cold brew raspberry cordial. At Blue Heron Books, kids can write a letter to their kindred spirit on custom Anne stationery. They can also play a game of hopscotch and take a picture in an Anne-themed photo booth. Concession 6 Studio and Green Mantle Pottery are showcasing memorabilia and relevant art pieces. Participants can have a specially crafted raspberry cider en route at Banjo Cider. There are also Anne-themed activity books available at the Uxbridge Public Library and Welcome Center for the kids. Visit the Township of Uxbridge website to learn more about the Lucy Maud Montgomery Trail. You can also contact Lisa John McKenzie from the Township of Uxbridge at 905-852-0400 or by email at tourism@uxbridge.ca, or you can contact the president of the Lucy Maud Montgomery Society of Ontario, Melanie Whitfield. You can reach her at 705-228-8155 or by email at mzilawhitfield@gmail.com. I felt grateful for the meaningful moments that made me wiser. Tina Y. Gerber, special to the Standard. My stepdad was the best storyteller growing up. Some of his stories made me laugh out loud, while others made me question the entire universe. As I pondered these questions, my mother was pretty cool. She said, "Trust your instincts." It was okay to question adults and ask plenty of questions. She never wanted to answer those questions, but would rather leave it up to me to practice using my own judgment. I miss those days, listening to hours and hours of my stepdad and mother sharing their stories. Unknowingly, he was teaching me much more than we both realized. We spent hours cooking, hunting, fishing, and traveling in the car together. He would share stories about growing up in the Depression, skipping school, and having the truant officer land on his doorstep. Stories help to transport us to another time and place. They teach us profound lessons about life, encouraging us to reach for the stars. Stories can give us a voice and help us express our joy and happiness, or our concerns and disappointments. Many of his stories I had heard dozens and dozens of times. I was always impressed how they never varied or changed. I felt and heard emotion in his voice 40 years after the experiences. I was one of the few privileged teenagers who wanted to spend time with her dad. Stories can build friendships and connections, and that is also why I enjoy spending time with seniors. As individuals age, they experience age-related memory loss. They tend to repeat things, forgetting they have already told you that story. My children constantly remind me of this fact. Seniors will often reflect on their past. Proverbs 29:20 says, "The glory of young men is their strength, but the splendor of old men is their gray hair." The older generation desires for the next generation to remember what came before them. Spending time with your parents and grandparents as they reflect on the past shows them we value the contributions or sacrifices they have made within the family and society. We can show our respect to one another by truly listening to them. I wish I had jotted down more of my dad's crazy adventures and stories and written out my mother's secret recipes. Listening can cause us to reflect on our own short lives and the eternity that awaits. I have been retired a few short weeks now and can't believe how fast time has flown by. From my observations and experience working in both home care settings and nursing homes, I feel seniors are being listened to, but not truly heard. Whether due to being frail, memory loss, dementia, or other cognitive impairments, there is an uneasy distance experienced by some. Well-meaning caregivers, personal support workers, nurses, and doctors try to help and may tend to think or know what is best for a senior. Listening is such a simple thing, but so difficult at the same time, and is definitely a skill acquired through much time and practice. So on your next visit to your grandparents, when they tell you the same story after story, remember, it is not to bore you, but to share a part of them with you. Sit the extra 20 minutes while they finish a story you've heard 100 times. They will appreciate it more than words could ever express. You may not remember all the stories they shared, but trust me, you will remember the feeling you had as their faces lit up while the past preoccupied their thoughts.
The mud between our toes. Do you remember the sheer joy of jumping in a nice puddle of muddy water when you were little? I do, with relish of thought and warmth. Of course, I didn't stay too warm, covered with muddy water, soaking through my clothes, but Mom was there with her momentary look of disappointment and her longer love. There was a time I overheard her talking with my dad about it. She started out complaining about the amount of laundry I generated, but eventually ended up laughing with him. She chuckled, "You should have seen his face. His ears and hair were full of mud." My dad's reply, "Well, I guess we'd better start that potato crop, 'cause he's a boy and that's his thing." Most children love playing in the dirt, and we enjoy laughing over how outrageous it can get, while they remain young. It seems to be a natural tendency the majority of us have. Unfortunately, as we grow, these things grow in variety, proportion, and severity, so an obvious perspective change is needed. This is truth. We have our adult versions. Just for example, tipping a little, or substance abuse. It seems it's simply an issue of quantity, but it definitely affects the quality of life. Going down the road of devaluation can lead from pornography to overtly cheating on a spouse. Many would argue this is an issue of level of participation. Starting with the internet and older mediums of exposure, some would argue these are a series of physical steps removed, and so no real harm is done. Citing the second as betrayal, with its direct results of clear physical interaction, in that real contact is made, so physical exchange is had, including STDs and possible reproduction implications. Wow, rationalization and denial, how it exposes our inner selves. The idea of fidelity and integrity seems to be lost on those who are trapped in these ways of thinking, as they try to distance themselves from acknowledging the pain of real loss. Outcome mechanisms are triggered like, well, monogamy is not natural, or it's only fantasy, so it's got nothing to do with my relationship. And further down the same path, it's only physical, it doesn't mean anything, I still love you. Are we actually buying the garbage overindulgent media is putting out? Sheer repetition of something is not an evidence of truth. I mean, how long were they saying the world was flat? Man, can we lie to ourselves? And it eventually affects our sense of reality and worldview. The fact there is cause and effect seems to have been drowned in our education system today, being replaced by a kind of pandering to short-term memory. It leaves the young and later these adults with the idea of entitlement and unrealistic levels of appetite, without an awareness of a path and its consequences. It is literally being led down the garden path to slaughter. This never enables a person to build a healthy construct on which to live and find security. Much of our society is being raised on technology which caters to this neurological development of our brains in new unfortunate ways. Many virtual games, products, and toys are designed to appeal to short-term, spoon-fed, instant gratification and reinforcement, creating a kind of dependency. Except for certain products directed at brain development, much of it deliberately avoids addressing it and so weakens the part of the brain responsible for deeper decision-making and higher reasoning, leaving it untrained as to how to enter in, face, and resolve issues and maintain conviction. Instead, these products attempt to stimulate only the pleasure center and short-term memory. Even social media panders to this same immediate gratification, and in addition, tends to leave one without the capacity for genuine personal judgment. This gives rise to cyberbullying and much impatience out there around our lives having to be curtailed a little during COVID. Masks, hand sanitizing, and social distancing. Many studies have been made acknowledging the remapping of the human brain by service-oriented tech, for example, computers, television, and the integrated capabilities of our phones today. Don't get me wrong, if a person uses tech wisely, meaning at a level which does not replace one's own calculative and cognitive abilities, then it can be very helpful. However, if it becomes a go-to for everything, then a person is giving the choice factor over to technology and retarding the growth of one's development and command of life. They don't call it the idiot box for nothing. I'm not putting tech itself down, but the purveyors of mass entertainment media products know what they are exposing us to. It appears as a systematic ushering of us into a state of addiction, so we fail to use the higher reasoning aspects of our brains. Interestingly, and I believe not coincidentally, this is the pattern of thinking enabling the industry of human trafficking and its offshoots of magazine, video, and internet pornography to thrive on us. Cause and effect makes those rich who nibble away at our emotional and relational bottom line. Let's keep our free will intact and defend against all slow slides into the decisions being made for us, as polished as they may seem, which is predicated on the devaluing of human life, masquerading as freedom, but creating dependency.
The Standard Podcast was produced by Greenstream Studio for the Standard newspaper.